The ground erupted beneath Emil Hargrove's boots. A shockwave threw him to the snow, ears ringing, dust choking his lungs. Behind him, a wall of brick crumbled, sending jagged fragments scattering like deadly rain. Emil rolled, feeling the sting of ice and debris, his heart hammering so violently he was sure the world could hear it. "Move! Now!" Corporal Liska's voice cut through the chaos. She was already up, clutching the edge of a shattered doorway, eyes wide and alert, body tense as a drawn bow. Emil scrambled after her. Every step sank into the snow, every motion a negotiation with fear. The village had vanished into ruins, walls twisted, roofs caved, chimneys like broken teeth pointing at a gray, frozen sky. Smoke spiraled from smoldering beams, curling in the cold like the fingers of something watching. Something shifted in the debris ahead. A figure. Small, trembling. Alive, or barely. Emil froze, chest tight. To move was risk, to stay was guilt. Every instinct screamed, "Do something, or you'll regret it." "Emil, we can't just stand here." Liska shouted, her fingers icy, yet rigid with tension. He swallowed, nodding, every nerve taut. They edged forward. The figure let out a faint, uneven groan. Emil's stomach dropped. A child, maybe a soldier, trapped beneath splintered wood. Shivering, helpless. The choice was clear: act and risk everything, or step back and live with silence gnawing at your conscience forever. He lunged, gripping the edge of the rubble, snow and ice cutting into his palms. Liska followed, hands trembling, voice quiet but firm, "Pull him with me." The figure shifted, a small hand slipped into Emil's grasp. Cold, shaking, fragile. He pulled, muscles burning, adrenaline ripping through him. Liska leaned in, assisting, and together they freed the child from the icy trap. The boy coughed violently, tears streaking frozen cheeks, eyes wide, staring at the ruin around him. Emil wrapped his coat around him. He could feel the weight, not just of the child, but of responsibility, of choice, of survival pressing down in a physical ache. A deep boom rolled across the horizon. The ground shivered beneath their boots. Emil's mind snapped to the present. Someone, something, was coming. The fog swirled, hiding shapes in gray, and every shadow was a question: friend or enemy, living or dead. "Which way?" Liska asked, voice tight, trembling. Emil glanced down the lane, a maze of snow, broken carts, and jagged roofs. Every instinct screamed forward, every thought warned of ambush. Yet the child needed him, and he could not abandon that fragile spark. A crack, sharp and deliberate, echoed from behind. Emil froze, muscles coiled. The boy pressed against him, shivering violently, seeking some anchor in the storm of sound and fear. Emil gritted his teeth, heart hammering. There was no room for hesitation. Every step now was moral and mortal. He took the first careful step forward, fog curling around his boots like living smoke. Every sense strained, the wind biting, the snow hiding, the distant artillery thrumming, the unknown waiting. Fear had become a companion, morality a weight around his neck. The village was no longer a place, it was a crucible. And then, from the corner of his eye, a shadow moved, a figure in the fog. Emil froze. Not a trick. Not imagination. The unknown was approaching. He exhaled slowly, a breath caught in tension, weighing every decision he'd ever made. One wrong move, one hesitation, and they would all be lost. The child clutched his coat. Liska mirrored his stance. The figure stopped. And the snow swallowed them all in silence. The first step had been taken. The rest was waiting. A shot rang out before Emil could fully rise. The crack split the air like ice breaking on a frozen lake. Snow sprayed around him, forcing the child to duck instinctively, and Liska's face went pale. Emil felt the blood drain from his fingertips as he pressed the boy closer to his chest. "Get down," he shouted, voice hoarse, nearly swallowed by the fog and the distant artillery rumble. The figure that had appeared in the square, tall, rigid, almost statuesque, was gone. Only the echo of its boots remained in the soft snow, fading into the gray nothingness. Emil scanned every shadow, every crooked ruin, every shattered roofline. Nothing moved. And yet, he could feel it watching. "Emil." Liska's whisper cracked. She was pointing toward a narrow alley. Snow had drifted in, forming small dunes over shattered boards and half-collapsed walls. "We can't stay here. We have to move." He nodded, tension snapping through his shoulders like a drawn wire. Step by step, they crept forward, boots sinking into the snow, every crunch a signal to unseen eyes. Emil's mind raced. He remembered the boy's eyes when they'd pulled him from the debris, wide, trusting, fragile. And he remembered the groan that had escaped him before, the way helplessness clung to the child like frost. The village was a ghost. Windows stared like empty sockets. Doors hung crooked, broken hinges whining as the wind forced them to sway. Smoke curled from ruined fireplaces, mixing with fog, creating a gray haze that seemed alive. Emil's stomach twisted. Every ruined home, every twisted being whispered the same truth: nothing would be as it was, not for anyone. A distant scream shredded the quiet. Human, terrified, close but not within sight. Emil froze. His instincts screamed move, but a part of him, the part that had refused to abandon the trapped boy, pulled him toward the sound. Liska's hand gripped his sleeve. "Do we help?" she asked, fear etched into her features. He clenched his jaw. Morality warred with survival. One choice could cost all of them. And yet, silence felt like surrender. Step by step, they moved, and the snow swallowed the sound of their boots. Ahead, a collapsed barn loomed. Emil's gut tightened. Its roof had fallen inward, jagged beams like broken fingers pointing accusingly at the sky. Shadows shifted inside. A dog barked, or was it the wind whistling through the splintered wood? He couldn't tell. Liska's hand pressed against his arm. Maybe we wait here," she suggested, voice barely audible. He shook his head. Waiting was a choice too, a slow surrender to fear. They pressed on. The boy's small hand tightened around his coat, anchoring Emil to the present, to responsibility, to something human. As they rounded the barn, Emil noticed the faint outline of another figure, crouched in the ruins. He froze, stomach lurching. The figure, man, woman, had a rifle. And they weren't alone. Shadows shifted behind, fleeting, almost unreal. "Stop!" Liska's whisper was urgent, brittle with tension. Emil obeyed, heart hammering in his throat. Every second stretched, every breath a question of morality and survival. The child whimpered, cold and frightened. Emil's mind raced. Should he reveal themselves? Should he try to help? Or should they slip silently past, ghosts among ghosts? A sharp crack echoed again, closer this time. Snow sprayed like glass around them. The child pressed tighter, shivering violently, eyes wide and uncomprehending. Emil felt panic clawing at his chest. One misstep, one sound, and the world would collapse into violence. Then a voice, low and uncertain, came from the shadows. "Who's there?" Emil froze. The fog shifted, twisting the world into gray shapes. His mind searched for reason, for strategy, for any plan that didn't involve catastrophe. Morality screamed, instinct screamed, fear screamed louder than both. The figure stepped forward, revealing a soldier, young, dirty, exhausted, eyes like dark wells of uncertainty. Emil exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The boy whimpered, recognizing the soldier's presence as something alive, something human. "Please," the soldier's voice trembled. "Are you lost too?" Emil's grip on the child tightened. We're moving through. "We're trying to get out," he said, voice shaking. Every word was a negotiation with trust and fear. The soldier nodded slowly. "Then follow carefully. There's a way through the old mill road." But his gaze flicked to the fog and ruins. "It's not safe. Not for anyone." A rumble shook the ground. Artillery again, farther but relentless, vibrating through frozen earth and bone. Emil swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed forward. Every moral compass spun in conflicting directions. They began moving again, carefully, silently, each step deliberate. The boy's small hand never left Emil's coat. Liska's eyes scanned constantly, every ruined roofline and broken doorway a potential trap. Every shadow was both threat and refuge. Through the fog, Emil glimpsed signs of life, a partially buried cart, a scorched hearth, the remnants of hurried flight. He imagined families fleeing, soldiers pushing forward, the world reduced to survival in a gray, cold crucible. Every image twisted in his mind, feeding both fear and urgency. A loud crack, closer this time. Something, or someone, was approaching from the lane behind. Emil froze, child in arms, Liska crouched beside him. They were trapped between shadow and fog, between morality and survival, between the past they carried in memory and the chaos waiting ahead. And then a low groan came from beneath a snowdrift. A new presence, struggling, unseen. Emil's heart hammered violently. The fog thickened, swallowing shapes and sounds alike. Every choice now felt impossibly consequential. The soldier in front of them hesitated, glance darting behind. Emil tightened his jaw, mind whirling. One misstep, one wrong move, and all of them would vanish into the gray. Fear, morality, responsibility, everything condensed into the narrow space between the ruins. A faint movement in the corner of his eye. A shadow rising. Boots crunching over broken ice. Emil's chest tightened. They were no longer alone. And then the snow swallowed it all, leaving only tension, silence, and the knowledge that the next second could decide everything. The snow beneath Emil's boots cracked, brittle as bone. Each step echoed across the ruins, swallowed almost immediately by the fog that seemed to press against their ears and lungs. Ahead, the narrow lane forked into a frozen crossroads. The soldier who had guided them hesitated, shoulders tight, eyes scanning every shadow. Emil's heart hammered, the child clutched his coat, trembling, too small to understand the stakes that seemed to stretch infinitely before them. Then, another crack. Closer this time. Not artillery. A rifle, dry and precise. Emil dropped instinctively, dragging the boy low. Liska fell beside him, teeth chattering, breath clouding the icy air. "Stay quiet," Emil hissed, though his own voice sounded foreign even to him. Every instinct screamed move, act, survive, but the world had taught him that sometimes, the smallest hesitation carried the heaviest cost. From the fog, a figure emerged, but it didn't move like a soldier. Too careful, too deliberate. The snow betrayed it, crunching unevenly as if it, too, feared detection. Emil felt the familiar twist of guilt. Every shadow might be someone he could save, or someone he would have to confront. Every heartbeat was an ethical negotiation with survival itself. The soldier in front of them whispered, "We can't go straight." The crossroads, it's watched. Too many eyes. His voice trembled, betraying exhaustion, fear, and the knowledge that no plan was foolproof. Emil scanned the area. Ruined walls framed the fork, skeletal houses leaning like gravestones. A distant scream cut the fog, human and ragged, quickly muffled by wind and snow. The boy whimpered, pressing against Emil, seeking a sanctuary that didn't exist. "Maybe we split up," Liska muttered, voice barely audible. "Draw them off." Emil's eyes snapped to her, disbelief and dread warring in his chest. "No. Never. Not like that. Never." Every moral fiber tightened around the boy in his arms. To sacrifice one for the others was a choice he couldn't make. Survival demanded cruelty, but his humanity rebelled. They moved slowly, each step measured, toward the smaller lane that veered between the ruins. The fog wrapped around them like fingers, distorting shapes, twisting perception. Emil imagined phantom figures in the corners of his vision, sounds of footsteps that weren't there, and the pressure mounted. Every sound, every snap of ice, every gust of wind, was a question: are you ready to lose yourself? A shadow flickered in the corner of Emil's vision. He spun, rifle raised, but it was only the wind, forcing a torn shutter to sway against a collapsed roof. His chest heaved. He had been on edge for hours, days even, and the mind plays tricks in this kind of fear, turning ghosts into threats, doubts into panic. The soldier gestured forward, voice low, urgent. "There. Through the mill yard. Quick." The mill yard lay ahead, a vast, open expanse of snow and splintered wood. A lone windmill leaned precariously to one side, its blades frozen in place, like a monument to abandoned hope. Emil's stomach clenched. Open spaces were death traps, but the alternative, lingering in the shadows, was only slightly less fatal. The group moved cautiously, boots sinking into soft drifts. The boy stumbled. Emil caught him, lifting him into his arms, feeling the weight not just of the child but of responsibility pressing on his shoulders like iron. Liska stayed close, scanning, alert, whispering softly words of reassurance that barely reached the ears of the boy, or of Emil himself. A sudden clatter shattered the tenuous quiet. Emil's heart leapt. From behind the windmill, something moved, fast, deliberate, but unseen. The fog swallowed it almost immediately. They froze, pressed against a half-collapsed wall. Emil could hear his own pulse thumping, loud and alien in the hush. The boy whimpered, hiding his face against Emil's chest. "We have to run," the soldier whispered, urgency sharp in his tone. "Now. Don't stop." Every step was calculated panic. Emil imagined the shadows snapping at their heels. He imagined the artillery pounding closer, the fog thickening, the world shrinking to this frozen battlefield of conscience and survival. Snow burned under his boots. Each breath was a negotiation with terror. Each heartbeat a question: who will survive? Who will pay? Suddenly, the boy cried out, a short, sharp wail. Emil spun, seeing the cause, a patch of ice breaking beneath him, snow spraying upward, revealing a hole hidden beneath. Emil lunged, catching the boy, nearly losing his own balance. Liska slammed into him, scrambling, teeth gritted. The soldier extended a hand, pulling Emil forward, and they scrambled to safety, but the moment stretched, fragile, poised between life and collapse. The fog thickened, and Emil realized the crossroads behind them had disappeared entirely. They were suspended in the frozen open space of the mill yard, every ruin, every shadow, a possible threat. Every decision felt monumental. Every breath could betray them. Then, a new sound, a distant shout, muffled, but human. And behind it, the unmistakable metallic click of a rifle being readied. Emil froze, the boy clinging to him, Liska crouched beside. The soldier whispered a warning, but before he could finish, the echo of boots on ice sounded, fast and deliberate, coming from the fog in front of them. Emil's chest tightened. The frozen crossroads had become a trap without walls, a stage for moral choice, fear, and the tenuous threat of survival. Every muscle tensed. Every thought screamed, decide. Move. Live, or die trying. And then the boots stopped. Silence swallowed everything. The snow fell softly, deceptively calm, masking the tension that stretched like steel wires between them and the unseen threat. Emil felt the weight of all the choices, all the human cost, pressing down like a storm he could not escape. The fog shifted. The shadow moved again. Emil held the boy close. Liska's hand pressed against his arm, trembling. And just as he opened his mouth to make a choice, the scene froze, poised between life and danger, decision and consequence. The fog lifted just enough for Emil to see the ruin of the mill yard in full, pale and silent under the gray sky. Broken beams jutted like teeth, ice-coated remnants of walls splintered in every direction. The snow was trampled, stained in faint shades that suggested life had passed through here, and some had not returned. Emil's chest ached, heavy with exhaustion that was as much emotional as physical. The boy's small hand was still curled tightly in his coat sleeve. He had gone silent hours ago, perhaps numb, perhaps too afraid to speak. Emil shifted him carefully, feeling the fragile weight of responsibility pressing on him in a way he would carry long after the snow had melted. Is it over?" Liska whispered, her voice breaking the stillness. Her hair was streaked with frost, eyes haunted and hollow. Emil shook his head slowly. "Not really. Not ever, I guess." The soldier who had led them through the ruins leaned against a collapsed wall, hands trembling. His uniform was torn, stained with ice and soot. He exhaled a long, shuddering breath. "We made it this far, that's something." "Something?" Emil muttered bitterly, scanning the frozen horizon. Trees, black and skeletal, swayed in the bitter wind. Ruined villages lay scattered like scraps of memory, empty and silent. We lost people. We saw what it does to them. What it does to us. Liska knelt, brushing snow from a broken cart where faint prints suggested children had fled here before the village fell. "It doesn't feel like survival," she said softly. "It feels like endurance." The boy finally spoke, a small, trembling voice. Are we safe now?" Emil looked down at him, unsure what to say. Safe was a word that had lost meaning hours ago. He wanted to lie, to give the boy comfort, but even lying felt like betrayal. Instead, he held the child a little tighter. We'll try. That's all anyone can do." Silence fell. The wind howled, carrying whispers of distant artillery, far enough to feel unreal. Snow drifted gently over the ruins, softening edges, erasing footprints, but not memories. Emil closed his eyes for a moment, letting exhaustion wash over him like water. He had survived, but the weight of choice, of responsibility, of fear and guilt, lingered like a shadow. The soldier spoke again, quietly, almost to himself. "All the decisions, all the people we couldn't save, they follow you. Don't matter how far you walk. You carry them, or you stop being human." Emil nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Every moral choice, every hesitation, every act of courage or cowardice had left a mark. Survival was never clean. Humanity, when stripped by war, was measured in these small, fragile threads of conscience, and the determination to hold them, even when it hurt. the trio moved slowly toward the edge of the mill yard. The fog had thinned, revealing a faint trail leading toward forested hills. Broken homes and skeletal trees receded behind them, and for the first time, Emil noticed the sky was pale blue, sunlight weak but present, breaking through the winter haze. He swallowed, feeling a faint ache of hope and dread intertwined. The boy tugged at his sleeve. "Will we see them again?" Emil hesitated. The question hung heavy in the cold air. Some of them, maybe. Some, no. But we carry them with us. In how we move, in what we remember. That's how we keep them alive. Liska exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her shoulders, though the weight of exhaustion still remained. "I don't think I ever knew what fear really was," she murmured. "Not until now." "No one does," Emil said quietly, looking ahead at the forest. Every step was deliberate, careful, aware of the fragility of life and conscience alike. The path was uncertain, the future unwritten, but movement itself felt like defiance against the shadow of the past. They disappeared into the treeline, the ruins of the mill yard shrinking behind them. The snow, soft and silent, swallowed the evidence of their struggle. What remained was memory, raw, jagged, and yet human. Emil felt the boy's small hand in his, Liska close at his side, and a sense of fragile, terrible endurance settled over him. Survival had been earned in increments of fear, courage, and conscience, and now, with the forest ahead, they could continue walking, but nothing would ever be the same. The wind softened, carrying the faint echo of snow falling on broken roofs. Emil closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of what had passed, what would always follow, and the threads of humanity that had survived. And as they disappeared into the forest, Emil thought, quietly, "We carry them all. We carry them forward. That's how we endure. That's how we survive, human."